Slow motion is amazing. Something about the way it almost freezes time and focuses our attention on a specific moment really resonates with us when it's used properly. My problem, I use too much slow motion, and I don't think I'm the only one. Overusing slow motion can make us lazy and ineffective as storytellers, so I'm making it my New Year's resolution to shoot less slow motion. Let me explain why. Slow motion is used extensively across almost every genre, from nail-biting hunter and prey sequences in wildlife documentaries to intense fight sequences in action blockbusters. When it's used right, slow motion can help the audience process fast movement more effectively and reveal subtleties in that movement that would have been lost had the sequence been played at regular speed. Conversely, it can also be used as a stylistic tool to exaggerate key moments, such as the smile spreading across the face of a character or the carefree ambience of a day at the beach. However, slow motion has almost become the default when capturing B-roll, and I think we all need a bit of a rethink. So often when we go to film cutaways or B-roll for projects, we think, let's shoot this at 50, 60 or 120 frames per second, so we have the option to slow it down in post. That'll look really cool. The problem with this mindset is that it often means you don't have a clear vision for your footage and haven't asked yourself the why necessary when using slow motion effectively. As I've said from the start, I've been guilty of this more times than I can count, so this is not a judgment, more a suggestion to rethink your approach. So, what do I mean by the why of slow motion? Well, when slow motion is used, there should always be a reason or motivation behind the decision, and it looks cool doesn't count. For example, is there a sequence where a person is whitewater rafting and you really need to show off a particularly challenging stretch of the river? Then absolutely, slow motion could be used to highlight the struggle and skill of that person effectively, and it may be the right tool for this. Does your character need to make a gravity-defying jump off a cliff to a waiting chopper? Then sure, use slow motion to accentuate the distance and draw attention to the strained expression on the character's face. However, if you're filming a busy street scene, conference hall or restaurant and reach for those higher frame rates, first ask yourself why. Are you showing those groups of people in slow motion because there's something crucial happening that needs to be slowed down, or just because you think it looks cool or cinematic? The chances are showing those same sequences at regular speed will actually allow the audience to place themselves in the frame and get a greater sense of the feel of the spaces. In fact, relatability and realism are two things that are often lost with slow motion, especially at those higher frame rates. This is because the audience is so aware of the stylized nature of the footage that it can appear artificial or not true to life. Using standard frame rates such as 24, 25 or 30 frames per second presents the audience with a view of the world at a speed they would see in real life, which can in turn help the viewer imagine themselves in the spaces and situations you show in your footage. So that's the why behind shooting slow motion, but the other issue is that it can make us lazy as filmmakers. I've often thought, hey, it's great that I can shoot my B-roll sequences at 120 frames per second, I can stretch out my footage and get more coverage, which is true, but that mindset can really hinder creative thinking. For example, I recently shot a project with the A7S III and used the beautiful 120 frames per second 4K mode for my B-roll. I was convinced this would really elevate my cutaways and make my B-roll look more professional. However, after reviewing the footage, I wasn't really happy with how the shots were looking. I quickly realised that I had used the ability to shoot slow motion as an excuse to not hold my shots for long enough and not put enough focus on framing and composition. Does this sound familiar? In addition to this, an over-reliance on slow motion can actually hinder our development as camera operators. Learning to shoot stable, handheld footage is a real art that includes perfecting good walking technique, adding weight to the camera rig, and being mindful of having as many points of contact on the camera as possible. The problem with using slow motion when shooting handheld, particularly at higher frame rates, is that it hides the imperfections and shortcomings of your technique. Due to the reduced playback speed, any bumps, jitters or shakiness in the footage are smoothed out and appear less obvious to the viewer. This is actually a plus in many cases, but overusing slow motion can mean that you neglect putting time into learning how to shoot stable handheld footage. And finally, on a more basic level, overusing slow motion can make your footage look pretty boring. If slow motion is done right and used sparingly, it can be amazing, but I'm seeing more and more examples of video where the whole thing consists of coffee cups, flowers, and people shot at quarter speed. If you're not thinking about the why behind using slow motion, your videos will end up looking pretty generic and won't stand out amongst the noise that is online videos. So that's why I'm making a conscious effort this year to shoot less slow motion and to think about the why before I reach for those higher frame rates. What are your New Year's resolutions for videography and filmmaking? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe and goodbye.